Okay, this is an interview with Ruth Bull at her home in Amsterdam, New York, May 19th, 2003, approximately 2:15 p.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Ruth Bull. I'm born in Rotterdam on February 7th, 1920.
Okay. What was your educational background just prior to the beginning of World War II?
Just high school as a commercial course.
Okay. Where were you, and what do you remember about Pearl Harbor when you heard about it?
It was on Sunday, and I was working. I was working down at GE at that time, but I was home that day and getting ready to go out for the day. Mm-hmm. But we stayed home and listened to the radio.
Is that where you heard it on the radio?
Uh-huh.
And what was your reaction when you heard this?
Well, it was just, it felt so sad, so bad. Didn't know what was going to happen next. That was that's what was so bad. And then the next day, of course, going to work on Monday, it was talk about what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. What kind of work did you, how long did you stay at GE?
I was there from 1940 to 45.
Okay. And you did secretarial work?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. How did you end up with the Los Alamos project?
My sister and my brother-in-law was called. He was a glassblower at GE, and he was personally asked to go to Los Alamos. Mm-hmm. And so he went, and my sister went with him. And so I said to her, well, I'd like to come out. Maybe I could be your maid. I'd like to see what New Mexico looks like. And so she turned my name in to personnel, and then they sent me an application and information about going, and then so I applied, and so my fare was paid by the government, and that's how I got out there.
So your sister worked for them and her?
She did,
oh, she
but
didn't.
he did.
Her husband did, okay. Now what kind of work did he do?
He was a glassblower.
Okay. What kind of work did he do for?
GE.
Well, at Los Alamos.
The same.
I know glass blowing.
The glass blowing. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What kind of work did you do when you were out there?
Secretary.
All right. Was it different than the work you did at GE, or about the same?
About the same.
Mm-hmm. Did they give you any specific training?
No. No, we didn't have to have any training.
Mm-hmm. How about censorship? Did you have a lot of censorship?
Yes. Yes, you couldn't leave the hill. They called it the hill, and unless you had a...
Why did they call it the hill?
Because it was on a hill.
Okay, yes, I know that's obvious.
I mean, it was so 2,000 feet above sea level, mm-hmm. And then it was like a mesa up there.
Mm-hmm. Was there a lot of security around it?
Oh yes, you couldn't get in or out without identification, mm-hmm. and you had to sign in the time you left and the time you came back. Mm-hmm.
Did you live up there, or were you?
We lived up there.
Uh-huh. What kind of facility did you live in?
I lived in a dormitory, about 20 people in each dorm.
Mm-hmm. Now, were these all women that lived in this dormitory?
No, they were all men and women. Mm-hmm. And my sister lived in a house, apartment, or duplex house.
Mm-hmm. Were there any special precautions you had to take with the kind of work you did at all?
No, not at that time.
Why not? Could you tell us some of the stories you told us about them bringing things in that were radioactive? Did you realize that? Did you have
they were contaminated? Yes, yes. That part we knew, that you had to be careful what you handled, and you had to handle it and get it out of your office fast, and not handle it too much. That's all we knew.
Now you said you had a Geiger counter.
Yes, on my desk, and if it flipped, well, then you had something in there that was contaminated. You had to get it out of there, get it moving.
Now, did you personally have to do this, or did
No.
someone else?
Someone else did that.
Okay. How did you feel about your work? Did you enjoy your work there?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it, and we worked a full 8 hours, and sometimes more, and depended on what the job had to be done.
Okay. How did you feel about? Did you have any news coming in about the war and what was going on itself?
Only by radio, and nothing else. We didn't have anybody going or coming. Not very often.
Were your letters pretty heavily censored?
Yes, they were. Not heavily though, but they were censored. You couldn't say anything about where you worked or how you worked or what you did. That wasn't much for me, but I worked in an office.
Did you ever meet anybody that was directly involved with the project, like Robert Oppenheimer?
Yes. Dr. Fermi and Teller, they all worked in the technical area. We all worked in the same area.
What were they like?
They were nice. Especially Dr. Fermi. He was my favorite. And we would have, there were dances. We had dances on weekends. Not every weekend, but once in a while.
Why did you think he was your favorite?
Because he liked to square dance with me. And his wife did not. She didn't want to square dance. And so he picked me. But it was fun. And they all danced. Everybody was very friendly. I only saw Oppenheimer a few times. Half the time he was incognito. He was working all the time or somewhere. He was always on the move.
Now, did they live in the facility also?
Yes. And homes. There were a few. See, originally it was a school, and a private school. That's where Oppenheimer went to school.
Oh, it is. Okay.
As a child. And so they had a few homes that were very well built, and stone, brick, and he lived in one of those, not too far. All the dorms and everything were built around it, and it was a very small area.
Now, did you have a lot of military personnel coming in and out of the area, too?
The military took care of the civilians. The civilians had preference out there. They had to take care of the civilians. And there were 3 or 4 people that worked in our office, and there were 3 or 4 civilians. After I got there, then there were other people that were hired, civilians, in our office. But we had a couple. I know that one of my best friends, she was in the Army, and she had charge of radiation reports, and she had to be locked in when she was doing those reports, and we were all combined all the while. And at the door, we'd have about 4 MPs, because you couldn't go in and out of a building unless you identified yourself. In every building.
Did you have to wear a name tag anywhere,
No.
or did you have them with you, though?
You had them with you.
What other social activities were there beside the dances? Were there any other social activities there?
We had a movie. We have moved quite a few movies. That was held in one building, and then we had church there too. I have a picture of us in the church, but the night before we went to the movies in the same building. And just entertaining. I met a lot of my sister's friends that married people, and I spent a lot of time with them. And so I had dinners with them, and we played cards a lot. But we did have that's about it, the dances. And then after 45, after the drop of the bomb they were more liberal. And then some of the GIs were able to bring their wives up on the hill.
Were you able to go out and explore the area at all much?
Yes, we did that quite a bit.
Mhm.
And traveled around different places in New Mexico.
Now, did you have a car available?
No,
or?
no, a friend of my sister's took us. There were three of us in our dorm that went with him, and then he took a lot of the pictures.
Did you have much rationing up there? Or?
No, and we were well supplied with food. I mean, they didn't have to worry about any food. They had a commissary, and you're able to buy for your own.
Now, did you have to do your own cooking, or did they have
they had
a mess hall facility?
Mess hall.
Okay. Do you have any memorable events that you think stand out more than others while you were there?
The night before the first test of the bomb. I mean, they had several different tests, you know, down in Sandia, southern part of New Mexico. And we would hear about them being duds or not, you know, or being successful. And then, but the night that the big one was going to be dropped, it was a sort of a funny feeling, because you got the feeling that you didn't know whether it was going to be successful or not, and they were worried. They were worried because they didn't know whether it was going to start a chain reaction and start the world on fire. They were pretty sure of what was going to happen, but they weren't positive. And so we stayed up all night waiting for that first test. And it happened at 5:30 a.m. and it was as if it was noontime. And
so it was visible from where you were?
We were 250 miles away from it, and it was noontime. But everybody that went down to see the test, to be there, they all had to have permission to go. My boss went. And they couldn't watch it anyway, because they had to turn away from it, and they had to wear special glasses. And they couldn't look toward it at all. And so we saw more of the fire and the color and the knew what. Well, it
Could
was
you
just
describe
like fire.
what it was like?
It was just like fire. It was, and it just kept rolling and rolling. It was so bright.
How about the sound? Was there sound too?
Very, but you couldn't. It wasn't close, but you could hear the rumble. 250 miles.
Yeah.
And see, that was the southern part of New Mexico, Sandia, and we were in the north, so the sound raised higher, you know, came up high.
Could you tell us about this?
And this is called the fused earth. This is what the bomb did, it turned the sand to glass. This is kind of crude, but some of it was beautiful. The colors in it was really, really nice. And so
now, how did you receive that?
I had a pail of it. Somebody brought up, my boss brought up a pail of from Sandia. And so then we had this GI, anyway, he worked in the department where he could put it in plastic. He made bookends and different things like this for everybody to have a piece to take home.
Now, what story did you tell us about this? Why you didn't let the family look at this for a long time?
Because it was contaminated.
For how long?
16 years. Just about. Not much. Not much. It isn't too big a piece, but it was radioactive.
Okay. How do you think working out with this project, do you think it changed your life in any way or affected your life in any way?
No. I don't think so.
When did you come back from there?
I came back. I went to from there I went to Columbia University. The professor I had in our department was Dr. Mitchell from Columbia. He was a physicist. He was the head of our department. And so I followed him to New York, and I worked at Columbia University in the government contracts office at the time. And then I didn't stay there very long. And then I ended up working in the alumni house. And then after that, I had to come home because my mother my twin sister was supporting my mother. Well, I was too, but indirectly. But so finally I did come back home. And then...
When did you come home?
In 1946.
Now, what about your sister and her husband? Did they come?
They went directly to Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. So he continued to work with the
atomic energy.
Atomic energy. How long did he work with them?
Oh, 20 years or more, till he retired.
Okay. Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that you worked with out there?
Yes. I still in contact with one engineer, friend that I had. It was in the Army, and we still write Christmas cards. And another girl that moved up to Seattle. I kept in contact with her for many, many years.
Okay, and could you tell us about this?
Oh, this was this pin.
I'll hold it for you.
Oh,
this way?
Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
So it doesn't have glare in it. Now, can you tell us about that?
Well, we didn't have any ceremony or anything to receive this. We just received it.
Well, what is that?
This is a
certificate.
A certificate of working on
The Manhattan Project?
Manhattan Project, yes. And the pin was also issued to each one of us.
And that was signed by the Secretary of War?
Yes, Mr. Stimson.
Yes.
That's a kind of at least we did something.
Yes.
For the war effort.
How did you feel?
I got it.
What was your reaction when you heard about the atomic bombs being dropped on Japan?
Terrible. Also, we had to go to a couple of lectures because of it being dropped on so many women and children. You know, it was so bad, so that we didn't. At first, I didn't know what they meant, why. But afterwards, I thought about it, because after you start thinking about it afterwards, think how terrible it was. You didn't want to. It was so that we didn't feel so guilty. And we did. We had lectures afterwards, saying that. And then since then, though, now we went to was it the Historical Society we went to give this talk about Los Alamos?
Oh yeah, that was.
And one man, that was just a few years ago, and one man came up to me after we talked about how I got there. I want to thank you for working on that atomic bomb. And I said, oh, gee, thanks. And he noticed my pin. And I said, that's the first time that anybody's ever said anything to me. That's when I quit feeling guilty. It's you can't help thinking after all these years. But he said, you saved many, many more people than that was killed at that bomb. And it's true. And then we were good friends with a Japanese girl, weren't we? After the war.
Okay.
But she never questioned me either, did she? Never questioned me about the atomic bomb.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're rolling.
Well, just
Want me to hold this for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is what. Okay, you can set it on my lap.
Okay.
Well,
I'll have
let's
to-
see.
I want. These are before I left. They gave me a party at GE to
Oh.
go away.
And whereabouts
But
are you
this
in
is-
that picture?
In this picture,
Yes.
right here.
Okay.
I got your other, in the other one for the
Okay.
parties you had before you left.
Here's my office. Here's my. That's our. That's what. That was our.
Okay, then you were, boy, you're just below the top there.
Yeah.
You're close to the top of the pile here.
Yeah.
Wayne and I in our office are down here somewhere.
Okay.
Some of the pictures are.
Now this
This
is,
is going up the hill. I think there's a better one over here.
Okay.
This is one going up around the mountain. We had anyway. I went up on the bus, and I sat on the outside in the cliff, and they just had to make a new road, all the way up around those mesas and cliff.
now these are views from the top
From
of it, or?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
kind of coming down or going up. This was the lodge. This was one of the original lodges that that
I'm
was
getting
al-
a lot of glare.
Okay, I'll
that
have
was
to hold
already
it
up
up
there.
like this.
Okay. Another
This
shot
was
of the lodge.
this was at a party. We had a lot of get-togethers,
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine it had to be a pretty
I-
close group of people. How many
Yes.
people were up there total? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Mhm.
And the houses. My sister lived in a house like this, a duplex, just an ordinary little house. This is in that little big lodge.
Now, do you have any photographs of like Oppenheimer and Fermi or any of
No.
the others? Okay.
This is from the top of that mesa. That's how vast down off of the hill between Santa Fe and Los Alamos. It was 45 miles up from Santa Fe, but you had to go up and then come back in order to get up there because it was so high. And that's what we used to do. Go to different places in the pueblos. We always tried to visit all the old pueblos.
Now, who is this?
That's me.
That's you, and this is you, and
No, that's a gal that worked with me
oh,
in
okay.
the office. And that's me on the top of that mesa. This was an old abandoned pueblo. This was down in Santa Fe. This is still on top of that mesa. And this is the rail. I think you can see the railroad, but not much. But this is my sister's house, right there. And she had a son, so she didn't work. Her husband wouldn't let her work. So he said she can go, but she's not going to work. So she stayed home. This is my messenger in the office. He lived down near Santa Fe,
Oh.
down in San Ildefonso.
Now, what tribe was he? Do you remember?
No. And this was inside the house. This is what the houses, they were all furnished for the civilians. Just, oh, here's the theater in our church.
Oh, okay.
Wild horses.
Did you ever have any USO shows come up to see you, or
Not up there.
Not up
no,
there. Okay.
No. But we did have the big bands.
Oh.
Big bands come up.
Oh. Were there any famous ones, or?
No. Well, I think who was it? Like Kay Kaiser, I think.
Oh,
I'm not
uh-huh.
sure. This is the one I'm still in contact with.
Uh-huh.
He was an engineer.
What is his name?
Sid Yenny,
And where's he from?
Michigan. And here he is working with somewhere in the building. They're crude, you know. They didn't have much nice facilities, you know. Just a shed, you know, where they worked in like this one. Every building was like a shed.
Just made out of plywood, it looks like.
Yeah, that's right. And
It must have gotten cold there in the winters.
oh, it was beautiful.
Was it?
We had snow,
Mhm.
but it would be gone by 11 o'clock. And it was just enough not to, never got real cold like it does here.
Now, who's that fellow down
This
there?
gal she was a mathematician, very brilliant. She lived in New Mexico, and so she was a good friend.
Now, is that your brother-in-law?
No.
He wasn't in the military. He was
No,
civilian. Okay.
And this is what the houses look like. Just friends. This is one of my bosses, and this was a physicist. Everybody looked the same. The only one you could tell was different was Teller. You know, Dr. Teller. Oh, I didn't like him.
Why not?
Oh, he was so boisterous. And talk like an... Here's where I ended up, Columbia. That was my sister's son in their house. And this is, we walked, and I got the biggest kick out of this picture because one of our girls worked in the office. She was Mexican. And she says, only the Indians wear shoes. And it was true. It was true. I guess she brought the picture to me and she said, see, here's where they're the only ones that wear shoes. They got them from the government, you know. This was a physicist's wife, and they had just had a child. We walked from work, scientist. I wish I had gotten more pictures of we went way up into Colorado one day. You were right up there.
So did you have plenty of gasoline then if you wanted it?
Yeah, they did. Got it from the Army. The Army catered to us. Well, in fact, one day, one week, we had to go without water. And they had to bring up water up on the hill. And the Army all went home. They sent them all, but the civilians, that was the only time the civilians had to stay there. And so they had to bring the water up to us. This is about afterward. Everything. This is when one of the, he was a civilian then, and his wife and child came up on the hill after the war. This was our group in our office. I haven't seen these in a long time.
Your husband brought down...
Okay.
That's their picture.
Thank you.
There's a photo behind you, Mike.
Oh, but you don't need
I thought
this.
maybe you want to get a good picture.
Yes,
Oh,
we'll get a good shot of that.
Gee. I hope you don't show these around.
They're going to be in a movie theater next week.
Oh, we're just
You're kidding me, aren't you?
Yes. Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Yes,
your
thank you.
interviews.
Okay.